O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Merry Christmas to all. He is born. December 25th, 1899, Volume 3. Jesus wants a continuous attitude of sacrifice in the soul. After spending several days of almost total privation of my highest and only good, days accompanied by hardness of heart, without even being able to cry over my great loss, though I offered to God even that loss, saying to him, Lord, accept it as a sacrifice. You alone can soften this heart of mine so hard. Finally, after long suffering, my dear Queen Mamma came, carrying the celestial baby on her lap, wrapped in a little cloth, all shivering. She placed him in my arms, telling me, My daughter, warm him with your affections, because my son was born in extreme poverty, in the complete abandonment of men, and in highest mortification. Oh, how pretty he was with that celestial beauty of his! I took him in my arms and I clasped him to myself to warm him, because he was almost numb with cold, since he had nothing else to cover him but one little cloth. After I warmed him as much as I could, my tender little baby, moving his purple lips, told me, Do you promise me always to be victim for love of me, just as I am for love of you? And I, Yes, my little treasure, I promise you. And he, I am not content with the word. I want an oath, and also an underwriting with your blood. And I, if obedience wants it, I will do it. He seemed to be all content and added, From the moment I was born, I always kept my heart offered in sacrifice, to glorify the Father, for the conversion of sinners, and for the people who surrounded me, and who were my most faithful companions in my pains. In the same way, I want your heart to be in this continuous attitude, offered in spirit of sacrifice for these three purposes. While he was saying this, the Queen Mamma wanted the baby in order to nourish him with her most sweet milk. I gave him back to her, and she uncovered her breast to place it in the mouth of her divine baby. And I, clever, wanting to make a joke, placed my mouth to suckle. I drew a few drops, and in the act in which I was doing this, they disappeared from me, leaving me content and discontent. May everything be for the glory of God and to the confusion of this miserable sinner. December 25th, 1900, Volume 4, The Birth of Jesus. As I was in my usual state, I felt I was outside of myself. After wandering around, I found myself inside a cave, and I saw the Queen Mamma in the act of giving birth to little baby Jesus. What a wonderful prodigy! It seemed that both mother and son were transmuted into most pure light. But in that light, one could see very well the human nature of Jesus, containing the divinity within itself, and serving as a veil to cover the divinity, in such a way that, in tearing the veil of human nature, he was God, while covered by that veil, he was man. Here is the prodigy of prodigies, God and man and God, without leaving the Father and the Holy Spirit, because true love never separates. He comes to dwell in our midst, taking on human flesh. Now it seemed to me that mother and son, in that most happy instant, remained as though spiritualized, and without the slightest difficulty, Jesus came out of the maternal womb, while both of them overflowed with excess of love. In other words, those most pure bodies were transformed into light, and without the slightest impediment, light Jesus came out of the light of the Mother, while both one and the other remained whole and intact, returning then to their natural state. Who can tell the beauty of the little baby who, at the moment of his birth, transfused also externally the rays of the divinity? Who can tell the beauty of the Mother, who remained all absorbed in those divine rays? And Saint Joseph? It seemed to me that he was not present at the act of the birth, but remained in another corner of the cave, all engrossed in that profound mystery. And if he did not see with the eyes of the body, he saw very well with the eyes of the soul, because he remained enraptured in sublime ecstasy. Now, in the act in which the little baby came out to the light, I had wanted to fly and take him in my arms, but the angels prevented me, saying that the honor of holding him first belonged to the Mother. Then the Most Holy Virgin, as though stirred, returned into herself, and from the hands of an angel received her Son in her arms. In her ardor of love, she squeezed him so tightly that it seemed that she wanted to draw him into her womb again. Then, wanting to let her ardent love pour out, she placed him at her breast to suckle. In the meantime, I was completely annihilated, waiting to be called so as not to be scolded again by the angels. Then the Queen said to me, Come and take your beloved, and you too enjoy him. Pour out your love with him." As she was saying this, I drew near Mamma, and she gave him to me into my arms. Who can say my contentment, the kisses, the squeezes, the tendernesses? After I poured myself out a little, I said to him, "My beloved, you have suckled the milk of our Mamma. Share it with me." And he, all condescending, poured part of that milk from his mouth into mine, and then he told me, "My beloved, I was conceived united to suffering. I was born to suffering, and I died in suffering. And with the 3 nails with which they crucified me, I nailed the 3 powers, intellect, memory, and will, of those souls who yearned to love me, keeping them all drawn to myself, because sin had rendered them infirm and dispersed from their Creator, without any restraint." And as he was saying this, he gazed at the world and began to cry over its miseries. On seeing him cry, I said, "Lovable baby, do not sadden with your tears a night so happy for one who loves you. Instead of pouring ourselves out in crying, let us pour ourselves out in singing." And as I said this, I began to sing. Jesus was amused at hearing me sing, and he stopped crying. And completing my verse, he sang his own, with a voice so powerful and harmonious that all other voices disappeared at the sound of his most sweet voice. After this, I prayed to baby Jesus for my confessor, for those who belonged to me, and lastly for everyone, and he seemed all condescending. At that moment, he disappeared from me, and I returned into myself. December 25th, 1908, Volume 8. How to Make Jesus Be Born and Grow in Your Hearts. Finding myself in my usual state, I was longing for little baby Jesus, and after many hardships, he made himself seen in my interior as a little baby, and told me, "My daughter, the best way to make me be born in one's own heart is to empty oneself of everything, because in finding empty space, I can place all my goods in it. And only then can I remain in it forever, if there is room to be able to carry all that belongs to me, all that is my own. A person who went to live in the house of someone else could be called happy only if he found empty space in which to be able to put all of his belongings. Otherwise he would be unhappy. So I am. The second thing, in order to make me be born and to increase my happiness, is that everything the soul contains, both internal and external, everything must be done for me. Everything must serve to honor me, to execute my orders. If only one thing, one thought, one word is not for me, I feel unhappy. And while I should be the master, they make me a slave. Can I tolerate all this? The third one is heroic love, magnified love, love of sacrifice. These three loves make my happiness grow in a marvelous way, because they render the soul capable of works which are superior to her strengths, as she does them with my strength alone. They will expand her by making not only her, but also others love me. And she will reach the point of enduring anything, even death, in order to triumph in everything and be able to say to me, I have nothing else. Everything is only love for you. In this way she will not only make me be born, but will make me grow, and will form a beautiful paradise in her heart. As he was saying this, I looked at him, and from little, in one instant he became big, in such a way that I remained completely filled with him. Then everything disappeared. December 25th, 1910, Volume 10. Priests have become attached to families, to interest, to exterior things, and so forth. This is why it is necessary to have houses of reunions for priests. This morning, blessed Jesus made himself seen as a tiny little one, but so gracious and beautiful as to enrapture me in a sweet enchantment. Especially then, he rendered himself more lovable because, with his tiny little hands, he took little nails and nailed me with a mastery worthy only of my always lovable Jesus. Then he filled me with kisses and with love, and so I did with him. Then after this, I seemed to find myself in the grotto of my newborn Jesus, and my little Jesus told me, my beloved daughter, who came to visit me in the grotto of my birth. Only shepherds were my first visitors, the only ones who kept coming and going, offering me gifts and their little things. They were the first to receive the knowledge of my coming into the world, and as a consequence, the first favorites to be filled with my grace. This is why I always choose poor, ignorant, abject people, and I make of them portents of grace, because they are always the ones to be more disposed, the ones who more easily listen to me and believe me without raising so many difficulties, so many quibbles as, on the contrary, learned people do. Then came the Magi, but no priest showed up, while they should have been the first to form my cortege. In fact, more than anyone else, according to the scriptures which they studied, they knew the time and the place, and it was easier for them to come to visit me. But no one moved. Rather, while they indicated the place to the Magi, they did not move, nor did they trouble to take one step to follow the traces of my coming. This was a most bitter sorrow for me at my birth, because in those priests the attachment to riches, to interest, to families, and to exterior things was so great as to blind their sight like a glare, harden their hearts, and render their intelligence dazed to the knowledge of the most sacrosanct and most certain truths. They were so engulfed in the low things of the earth as to never be able to believe that a God could come upon earth in the midst of so much poverty and so much humiliation. And this not only at my birth, but also during the course of my life. When I performed the most sensational miracles, no one followed me. On the contrary, they plotted my death and killed me on the cross. And after using all of my art in order to draw them to myself, I put them into oblivion and chose poor and ignorant peoples as my apostles, forming my church in them. I segregated them from their families. I released them from any bonds of riches. I filled them with the treasures of my graces, and I rendered them capable of governing my church and souls. However, you must know that this sorrow of mine is still lasting, because the priests of these times have banded together with the priests of those times. They've been holding hands in their attachments to families, to interest, to exterior things, and they care very little or not at all about that which is interior. Even more, some have degraded themselves so much as to make even secular people understand how unhappy they are with their state, lowering their dignity down to the bottom and below the secular themselves. Ah, my daughter, what prestige can their words still have among the peoples? Even more because of them, the peoples keep deteriorating in the faith and into abysses of worse evils, groping their way in darkness because they see no more light in priests. This is the reason for the necessity of houses of reunion of priests, so that freed from the mist of darkness by which he is invaded, families, interest, and cares for exterior things, the priest may give out light of true virtues, and the peoples may turn back from the errors in which they have fallen. These reunions are so necessary that every time the church has reached the bottom, this has almost always been the means in order to make her rise again, more beautiful and majestic. On hearing this, I said, "My highest and only good, sweet life of mine, I compassionate your sorrow, and I would like to soothe it with my love. But you know well who I am, how poor, ignorant, bad I am, and also extremely taken with my passion for hiddenness. I would love it if you could hide me so much within you that no one might ever again believe that I existed. And you instead want me to speak about these things which so much grieve your most loving heart, and which are so necessary for the church. Oh, my Jesus, to me speak of love, and go to other good and holy souls to speak about these things which are so useful for your church." And good Jesus continued, "My daughter, I too loved hiddenness, but there is a time for everything. When the honor and the glory of the Father, as well as the good of souls, became necessary, I revealed myself and I did my public life. So I do with souls. Sometimes I keep them hidden, other times I manifest them. And you must be indifferent to everything, wanting only that which I want. Even more, I bless your heart and your mouth, and I myself will speak in you with my own mouth and with my own sorrow." And so he blessed me, and he disappeared. December 25th, 1918, Volume 12. Jesus repeats his life in the soul. Continuing in my usual state, I was feeling all afflicted for many different reasons. And blessed Jesus came and, almost compassionating me, told me, "My daughter, do not oppress yourself too much. Courage, I am with you. Even more, I am just inside you, continuing my life. This is why now you feel the weight of justice, and you would want it to unload itself upon you. Now you feel the tearing of the souls who want to be lost. Now you feel restless to love me for all. But in seeing that you do not have sufficient love, you flood yourself within my love and take all the love that everyone should give to me. Then, releasing your silvery voice, you love me for all, and all the other things that you do. Do you think you are the one doing it? Not at all. It is I. It is I who repeat my life in you. I feel restless to be loved by you, not with a love of creature, but with my own. Therefore I transform you. I want you in my will because I want to find in you one who compensates for me and for all creatures. I want you like an organ, available to all the sounds which I want to produce. And my love, there are certain times in which my life becomes bitter, especially because of the conditions in which you put me." And Jesus, knowing what I wanted to say to him, added, "What do you fear? I will take care of everything, and when one directs you, I give him my grace. When another does, I give grace to the other. And then it is not you whom they will assist, but me. And I will be generous with them according to how they will appreciate my work, my sayings, and my teachings. And my Jesus, the confessor, appreciated very much what you said to me. He cared very much about it, and he worked very hard to make me right. What will you give to him?" And Jesus, "I will give him heaven as recompense, and I will consider his office as that of Saint Joseph and of my mamma, who, having assisted my life on earth, had to go through hardships in order to nourish me and assist me. Now, since my life is in you, I consider his assistance and sacrifices as though my mamma and Saint Joseph were doing them again for me. Aren't you happy? And I thank you, O Jesus." December 25th, 1920, Volume 12. The sacramental lot of Jesus is even harder than his lot as an infant. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, together with Jesus. I was walking a long way, and on this journey, now I walked with Jesus, now I was with my Queen Mamma. If Jesus disappeared, I found myself with Mamma, and if she disappeared, I found myself with Jesus. During this walk, they told me many things. Jesus and Mamma were very affable, with an enchanting sweetness. I forgot everything, my bitternesses and even their privations. I thought I would never lose them again. Oh, how easy it is to forget evil in the face of good. Now, at the end of the walk, the celestial Mamma took me in her arms. I was very, very little, and she said to me, "My daughter, I want to strengthen you in everything." And it seemed that she was marking my forehead with her holy hand, as if she were writing and placing a seal on it. Then it seemed that she was writing in my eyes, in my mouth, in my heart, in my hands and feet, placing a seal upon them. I wanted to see what she was writing, but I could not read that script. Only on my mouth I saw 2 letters which said, "Annihilation of every taste." And immediately I said, "Thank you, oh Mamma, You take away from me every taste which is not Jesus. I wanted to understand more, but Mama told me, it is not necessary for you to know. Trust me, I did to you what was needed. She blessed me and disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. Afterwards, my sweet Jesus came back. He was a tender little baby, wailing, crying, and shivering with cold. He threw himself into my arms to be warmed. I squeezed him so very tightly to myself, and according to my usual way, I fused myself in his will in order to find the thoughts of all with mine, and surround shivering Jesus with adorations from all created intellects, in order to find the gazes of all and make all look at Jesus and distract him from crying, in order to find the mouths, the words, the voices of all creatures, that all might kiss him so as not to make him wail, and might warm him with their breath. While I was doing this, the infant Jesus stopped wailing and crying, and as though warmed, he told me, "My daughter, did you see what made me shiver, cry, and wail? The abandonment of creatures. You placed them all around me. I felt I was being watched and kissed by all, so I stopped crying. However, know that my sacramental lot is even harder than my lot as an infant. Though cold, the grotto was spacious and had air to breathe. The host, too, is cold, but so small that I almost lack air. In the grotto I had a manger with a little hay for bed. In my sacramental life, I don't even have hay, and I have nothing but hard and ice-cold metals for bed. In the grotto I had my dear Mamma, who took me very often with her most pure hands, covered me with ardent kisses in order to warm me, soothed my crying, and nourished me with her most sweet milk. In my sacramental life it is all the opposite. I do not have a Mamma. If they take me, I feel the touch of unworthy hands which smell like earth and muck. Oh, how I feel their stench, more than the manure I smelled in the grotto. Instead of covering me with kisses, they touch me with irreverent acts. Instead of milk, they give me the bile of sacrileges, of indifference, and of coldness. In the grotto, Saint Joseph never left me without the light of a little lantern at night. Here in the sacrament, how many times I remain in the dark also at night. Oh, how much more painful is my sacramental lot. How many hidden tears, not seen by anyone. How many wails not listened to. If my lot as an infant moved you to pity, much more should my sacramental lot move you to pity. December 25th, 1921, Volume 13, How the Humanity of Jesus was Nourished by His Will. The souls who live in the divine will surrounded and consoled Jesus at his birth. One who lives in the divine will is the closest to Jesus. As I was in my usual state, my sweet Jesus made himself seen as a little baby, all numb with cold, and throwing himself into my arms, he told me, "What cold! What cold! Warm me for pity's sake. Do not let me freeze any more." I pressed him to my heart, telling him, "In my heart I possess your will, so its heat is more than sufficient to warm you." And Jesus, all content, "My daughter, my will contains everything, and one who possesses it can give me everything." My will was everything for me. It conceived me, it formed me, it made me grow, and it made me be born. If my Mamma contributed by giving me the blood, she could do so because she contained my will, absorbed within her. Had she not possessed my will, she could not have contributed to forming my humanity. Therefore my direct will, and my will which was absorbed within my mamma, gave me life. That which is human had no power over me. It could give me nothing. Only the divine will nourished me with its breath and delivered me to the light. But do you think it was the cold of the air that made me freeze? Ah, no, it was the cold of the hearts that made me grow numb. And it was ingratitude that made me cry bitterly at my very first coming out to the light. My beloved mother soothed my crying, although she too cried. Our tears mixed together, and exchanging the first kisses, we poured ourselves out in love. But our life was to be sorrow and crying, so I had her place me in the manger to go back to crying, calling my children with my sobs and with my tears. I wanted to move them to pity with my tears and with my moans, so as to be listened to. But do you know who was the first after my mamma whom I called with my tears, to be close to me in my very manger, to pour myself out in love? It was you, the little daughter of my will. You were so little as to surpass my dear mamma in littleness, so much so that I was able to keep you near me, in my own manger, and I could pour my tears into your heart. These tears sealed my will in you, and constituted you legitimate daughter of my will. My heart rejoiced in seeing all that my will had delivered in creation coming back as whole in my will within you. This was important and indispensable for me. At my very first coming out to the light of this world, I was to restore the rights of creation and receive the glory as if the creatures had never departed from my will. Therefore the first kiss and the first gifts of my tender age were for you. And I, my love, how could this be if at that time I did not exist? And Jesus, in my will everything existed, and all things were one single point for me. I could see you then just as I see you now, and all the graces I have given you are nothing other than the confirmation of what you had been given from eternity. And I could see not only you, but in you I saw my little family, which would live in my will. How happy I felt! These soothed my crying, warmed me, and surrounded me like a crown, defended me from the perfidy of the other creatures. I remained concerned and doubtful. And Jesus, how is it you doubt? I have told you nothing yet about the relations which exist between me and the soul who lives in my will. For now I will tell you that my humanity lived from the continuous outpouring of the divine will. Had I taken one breath alone, which was not animated by the divine will, it would have been as though degrading myself and decaying from my nobility. Now the soul who lives in my will is the closest to me, and in everything that my humanity did and suffered, she is the first among all to receive the fruits and the effects that my humanity contains. December 25th, 1925, Volume 18. The dispositions are needed in order to possess the gift of the divine will. Similes of it. The living and supreme will is the greatest thing. It is to live divine life, and the soul operates in the unity of the eternal light. I was thinking about what is said above, that the divine will is a gift, and as gift, one possesses it as one's own. On the other hand, one who does the will of God must submit to commands and ask very often what he must do, and to be lent the gift, not to be owner of it, but to do that action which God wants. And once it is done, give back the gift he had borrowed. Many images and similes formed in my mind about one who lives in the divine volition and possesses it as a gift, and one who does the most holy will of God, who not only does not possess the fullness of the gift, but if he possesses it is at intervals and as a loan. I'm going to tell some of those similes. I imagined I had a gold coin, which had the virtue of making arise as many coins as I wanted. Oh, how rich I could become with this gift. On the other hand, someone else receives this gift as a loan for 1 hour, or in order to carry out one action of his, to then give it back immediately. What difference between my richness because of the gift I possess and that of one who receives it as a loan? Or, I imagined, I had received the gift of a light which never goes out. So both at night and during the day, I am safe. I always have the good of seeing this light, which no one can take away from me. It becomes as though a natural part of me, and it gives me the good of knowing what is good in order to do it, and what is evil in order to escape it. So with this light that I received as gift, I sneer at all, at the world, at the enemy, at my passions, and even at myself. This light is perennial source of happiness for me. It is without weapons, and it defends me. It is without voice, and it instructs me. It is without hands and feet, and it directs my way, making itself the sure guide to bring me to heaven. On the other hand, someone else has to go and ask for this light when he feels the need for it. Therefore, he does not have it at his disposal. Not being used to always looking with this light, he does not possess the knowledge of good and evil, and has not enough strength to do good and to avoid evil. So, not possessing the light, turned on and continuous, in how many deceptions, dangers, and narrow ways does he not find himself? What difference between one who possesses this light as his own gift, and one who has to go and ask for it when he needs it? Now, while my mind wandered amid many similes, I said to myself, so the living in the will of God is to possess the will of God, and this is a gift. Therefore, if the goodness of God does not condescend to give it, what can the poor creature do? At that moment, my lovable Jesus moved in my interior as though clasping me all to himself, and told me, "My daughter, it is true that the living in my will is a gift, and it is to possess the greatest gift. But this gift, which contains infinite value, which is currency that arises at each instant, which is light that never goes out, which is sun that never sets, which puts the soul in her place, established by God in the divine order, and therefore she takes her place of honor and of sovereignty in the creation, is given but to one who is disposed, to one who will not waste it, to one who will esteem it so much and love it more than his own life. Even more, he must be ready to sacrifice his own life so that this gift of my will may have supremacy over everything and be held as more than life itself. Even more, his life be nothing compared to it. Therefore, first, I want to see that the soul really wants to do my will and never her own, that she is ready to make any sacrifice in order to do mine, and that in everything she does, she always asks me for the gift of my will, even just as a loan. Then, when I see that she does nothing without the loan of my will, I give it as gift, because by asking for it over and over again, she has formed the void within her soul in which to place this celestial gift. And by becoming used to living with the loan of this divine food, she has lost the taste for her own will. Her palate has been ennobled and will no longer adapt itself to the vile foods of her own self. Therefore, in seeing herself in possession of that gift which she longed for, yearned for, and loved so much, she will live of the life of that gift. She will love it, and will give it the esteem it deserves. Would you not condemn a man who, taken by a childish affection for a child, only to have him around a little bit to amuse himself with him, would give him a banknote worth 1,000? And the little boy, not knowing the value of it, tears it to 1,000 pieces after a few minutes. But if, on the other hand, first he makes the child desire it, then he makes him know its value, then the good which that banknote of 1,000 can do for him, and then he gives it to him, that child will not tear it to pieces, but will go put it under lock and key, appreciating the gift and loving the giver more. And you would praise that man who had the ability to make known to the little child the value of money. If man does so, much more I do, who give my gifts with wisdom, with justice, and with true love. Here is, therefore, the necessity of the dispositions, of the knowledge of the gift, of the esteem and appreciation, and of love for the gift itself. Therefore, knowledge of it is like the herald of the gift of my will, which I want to give to the creature. Knowledge prepares the way. Knowledge is like the contract I want to make of the gift I want to give. And the more knowledge I send to the soul, the more she is spurred on to desire the gift and to solicit the divine writer to place the final signature that the gift is hers and she possesses it. So the sign that in these times I want to give this gift of my will is the knowledge of it. Therefore be attentive not to let anything escape you of what I manifest to you about my will, if you want me to place the final signature on the gift which I yearn to give to creatures. After this, my poor mind was wandering in the supreme volition, and I did as much as I could in order to do all my acts in the divine will. I felt invested with a supreme light, and as my little acts came out of me, they took their place within that light and converted into light, and I could see neither the point of the light in which I had done them, nor where to find them. I could only see that they had become incorporated in that endless light, and nothing else, and it was impossible for me to navigate through all that inaccessible light. To remain inside of it, yes, but to cross the whole of it was not given to my littleness. At that moment, my lovable Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, how beautiful is the operating of the soul in my will. Her act unites to the single act of her Creator, which knows no succession of acts. In fact, the eternal light is not divisible, and if it could be divided, which cannot be, the separated part would become darkness. And so, being light, the divine act forms one single act of all her operating. So, by operating in the light of my volition, the soul unites herself to that single act of her Creator and takes her place within the atmosphere of the eternal light. This is why you cannot see your acts, either the point of the light in which you performed them or where they are, because it is impossible for the creature to cross the whole of eternal light of God, although she knows that her act is certainly present in that light and takes its place in the past, in the present, and in the future. See, the sun also, being the image of the shadow of the divine light, possesses this property in part. Suppose you were operating in a place upon which the sun spreads its solar light. You see its light in front of you, above and behind you, on the right and on the left. If you wanted to see which was the part of the light of the sun that surrounded you completely, you would not be able to find it or distinguish it. You could only say that the light was certainly upon you. Now, that light was there from the first instant in which the sun was created, and it is and will be. If your act could convert into solar light as it converts into divine light, would you be able to find your particle of light and the light which was given to you by the sun in order to let you operate? Certainly not. However, you know that an act has come out of you, which was incorporated into the light of the sun. This is why I say that the living in the supreme volition is the greatest thing. It is to live divine life. As soon as he sees the soul in his will, the celestial creator takes her in his arms, and placing her on his lap, he lets her operate with his very hands, and with the power of that fiat with which all things were made. He lets all his reflections descend upon the creature, in order to give her the likeness of his operating. This is why the operating of the creature becomes light. It unites to that single act of her Creator, and constitutes itself eternal glory and continuous praise of her Creator. Therefore be attentive, and let the living in my will be for you your all, that you may never descend from your origin, that is, from the lap of your Creator. December 25th, 1926, Volume 20, How the Little Baby Made Himself Seen, Newly Born, by His Mama. The light that the little baby sent forth, that gave to everyone the greeting of his coming upon earth. Difference between the grotto and the prison of the Passion. I was anxiously waiting for little baby Jesus, and after many sighs, finally he came, and throwing himself as a little baby into my arms, he said to me, "My daughter, do you want to see how my inseparable Mama saw me when I came out of her maternal womb? Look at me and see." I looked at him, and I saw him as a tiny little baby, of a rare and enrapturing beauty. From the whole of his little humanity, from his eyes, from his mouth, from his hands and feet, came out most refulgent rays of light that not only enveloped him, but extended so much as to be able to wound each heart of creature, almost to give them the first greeting of his coming upon earth, the first knock, to knock at the hearts, to have them open and ask for a shelter in them. That knock was sweet, but penetrating. However, being a knock of light, it made no clamor, and yet it made itself heard strongly more than any sound. So on that night, all felt something unusual in their hearts, but very few were those who opened their hearts to give him a little accommodation. And the tender infant, in feeling himself unrequited in his greeting, and that no one was opening at his repeated knocking, began his crying, with his lips livid and shivering with cold. He sobbed, wailed, and sighed. But while the light that came out of him was doing all this with creatures, receiving the first rejections with his celestial Mama as soon as he came out of her womb, he threw himself into her maternal arms to give her the first embrace, the first kiss. And since his little arms could not reach to embrace her completely, the light that came out of his little hands surrounded all of her, in such a way that mother and son remained invested with the same light. Oh, how the Queen Mama requited her son with her embrace and kiss, in such a way that they remained so clasped to each other as to seem fused, one within the other. With her love, she compensated for the first rejection that baby Jesus received from the hearts of creatures. And the dear and charming little baby placed his first act of being born, his graces, his first sorrow, in the heart of his mamma, so that what was seen in the Son could be seen in his mamma. Then after this, the gracious little baby came into my arms, and as he squeezed me so very tightly, I felt him entering into me and I into him. And then he said to me, "My daughter, I want to embrace you as I embraced my dear mamma as newly born, so that you too may receive my first act of being born, and my first sorrow, my tears, my tender wailings, that you may be moved to compassion for my sorrowful state at my birth. Had I not had my mamma in whom I could place all the good of my birth, and fix in her the light of my divinity that I, Word of the Father, contained, I would have found no one in whom either to place the infinite treasure of my birth, or to fix the light of my divinity that shone forth from my little humanity. Therefore see how necessary it is that, when the Supreme Majesty decides for a great good to be done for creatures that can serve as universal good, we choose one to whom to give so much grace, that she may be able to receive within herself all the good that all others must receive. In fact, if others do not receive all of it or part of it, our work does not remain suspended and without its fruit, but the chosen soul receives all of that good within herself, and our work receives the return of its fruit. So my mamma was the depository, not only of my life, but of all my acts. Therefore, in all my acts, first I looked to see whether I could deposit them in her, and then I did them. In her I deposited my tears, my wailings, the cold and the pains that I suffered, and she echoed all of my acts, and with incessant thanksgivings she received everything. There was a contest between mother and son, I in giving and she in receiving. As this little humanity of mine made its first entrance upon earth, my divinity wanted to shine forth from it, in order to go around everywhere and make the first sensible visit to all creation. Heaven and earth all received this visit of their Creator, except for man. They had never received so much honor and glory as when they saw their King, their Maker, within their midst. All felt honored, for they were to serve him from whom they had received their existence. Therefore all made feast. So my birth was of great joy and glory for me on the part of my mamma and of all creation. But it was for me of great sorrow on the part of creatures. This is why I have come to you, to feel the joys of my mamma being repeated in me, and to place in you the fruit of my birth. Then after this I was thinking about how unhappy was that grotto in which little baby Jesus was born, how exposed it was to all winds and to cold, to the point of making one numb with icy cold. Instead of men, there were animals to keep him company. So I thought, which prison was more unhappy and sorrowful, the prison of the night of his passion, or the grotto of Bethlehem? And my sweet baby added, "My daughter, the unhappiness of the prison of my passion cannot be compared with the grotto of Bethlehem. In the grotto I had my mamma near me, soul and body. She was with me, therefore I had all the joys of my dear mamma, and she had all the joys of myself, her son, and that formed our paradise. The joys of a mother who possesses her child are great. The joys of possessing a mother are even greater. I found everything in her, and she found everything in me. Then there was my dear Father Saint Joseph, who acted as father to me, and I felt all of his joys that he felt because of me. On the other hand, in my passion, our joys were all interrupted, because we were to give place to sorrow, and between mother and son we felt the great sorrow of the nearing separation, sensible at least, that was to occur with my death. In the grotto, animals recognized me, and honoring me, they tried to warm me with their breath. In the prison, not even men recognized me, and in order to insult me, they covered me with spit and opprobrium. So there is no comparison between the two of them. December 25th, 1927, Volume 23. How Baby Jesus, newly born, fixes his gaze on his mama and on the one who was to possess his will. How in creation God placed his will as raw material. I was feeling all abandoned in the supreme volition, but all tormented by the total privation of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how I felt my poor soul being torn to pieces. What tearings without mercy and without pity, because he who alone can heal tearing so cruel is far away, and seems not to care about she who, for love of him, is so cruelly tormented. But while I was swimming in my sorrow, I was thinking of when my sweet Jesus was about to come out of the womb of his beloved mamma to fling himself into her arms. Oh, how I too would have wanted to squeeze him in my arms, to form sweet chains for him, so that he might no longer depart from me. But while I was thinking of this, I felt my poor mind outside of myself, and I saw my celestial mamma, all veiled with light, and in her arms little baby Jesus, fused in the same light. But it lasted only a few instants, and then everything disappeared, and I remained more afflicted than before. However, later he came back, and clasping his little hands around my neck, he told me, "My daughter, as soon as I came out of the womb of my mamma, I fixed my gazes, one on my dear mamma, nor could I do without looking at her, because in her was the enrapturing force of the divine will, and the sweet enchantment of the beauty and most refulgent light of my Fiat, that eclipsing my pupil made me remain fixed in she who possessed my very life by virtue of it. Seeing my life bilocated in her enraptured me, and I could not remove my gaze from the celestial queen, because my very divine force compelled me to fix on her. The other gaze I fixed on the one who was to do and possess my will. They were two links connected together, the redemption and the kingdom of my divine will, inseparable from each other. The redemption was to prepare, suffer, do. The kingdom of the Fiat was to fulfill and possess, both of them of highest importance. Therefore, my gazes were fixed on the chosen ones to whom both one and the other were entrusted, because there was my very will in them that enraptured my pupil. Why do you fear, then, if you have the gaze of your Jesus always looking at you, defending you, protecting you? If you knew what it means to be looked upon by me, you would no longer fear anything. Then afterwards I continued to think about the divine will, and my always lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, when our divinity formed the creation, it placed the divine will as raw material in all things, and so all things had their shape, solidity, order, and beauty. And everything the soul does with this raw material of my will, since a vital act flows within it, receives from it the shape of the beautiful works, all ordered and solid, with the imprint of the life of the divine Fiat within each work. On the other hand, one who does not do my will and does not put it as raw material in his works might do perhaps many things, but all disordered, without shape, without beauty, all scattered, such that he himself would not know how to make head or tail of them. It would happen as if someone wanted to make bread without water. He might perhaps have much flour, but since the water is missing, the life to form the bread would be missing. Someone else might have many stones in order to build, but does not have the lime that unites and cements the stones together. So he would have a disorder of stones, but never a house. Such are the works without the raw material of my will. They only occupy space. They cause bother, annoyance, and if they do good, any good at all, it is superficial. If they are touched, they are found to be fragile and empty of any good. December 25th, 1928, Volume 25. The feast that the little daughter prepares for baby Jesus. How she renders him happy. Adam, first son. Example of the artisan. I was thinking about the birth of baby Jesus, and I prayed him to come to be born in my poor soul. And in order to sing his praises and form a cortege for him in the act of his birth, I fused myself in the holy divine volition, and flowing in all created things, I wanted to animate the heavens, the sun, the stars, the sea, the earth, and everything with my I love you. I wanted to place all created things as though in waiting in the act of Jesus' birth, so that all would say to him, I love you, and we want the kingdom of your will upon earth. Now, while I was doing this, it seemed to me that all created things would come to attention in the act of Jesus' birth, and as the dear baby came out of the womb of his celestial mamma, the heavens, the sun, and even the tiny little bird, as though all in chorus, were saying, I love you, and we want the kingdom of your will upon earth. My I love you in the divine will flowed within all things in which the divine will had its life, and therefore all sang praises to the birth of their Creator. And I saw the newborn baby who, flinging himself into my arms, all shivering, told me, what a beautiful feast has the little daughter of my will prepared for me. How beautiful is the chorus of all created things saying to me, I love you, and wanting my will to reign. One who lives in it can give me anything, and can use all stratagems in order to render me happy and make me smile, even in the midst of tears. Therefore I was waiting for you, to have a surprise of love of yours by virtue of my divine volition. In fact, you must know that my life on earth was nothing but suffering, operating, and preparing everything that was to serve the kingdom of my divine will, that must be kingdom of happiness and of possession. Therefore it is then that my works will have their full fruits and will change for me and for creatures into sweetnesses, into joys, and into possession. Now while he was saying this, he disappeared from me. But after a little while he came back inside a little cradle of gold, clothed with a tiny little garment of light. And he added, My daughter, today is my birthday, and I have come to render you happy with my presence. It would be too hard for me on this day not to render one who lives in my divine will happy, not to give you my first kiss and tell you, I love you, as a requital of yours, and clasping you tightly to my little heart, make you feel my heartbeats that unleash fire, and would want to burn everything that does not belong to my will, while your heartbeat, echoing within mine, repeats for me your pleasant refrain. May your will reign on earth as it does in heaven. Repeat it always, if you want to render me happy and calm my baby crying. Look, your love has prepared for me the gold cradle, and the acts in my divine will have prepared for me the little garment of light. Aren't you happy? After this, I continued my acts in the divine fiat, going back to Eden, into the first acts of the creation of man, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, Adam was the first human son, invested by our volition, and his acts were more than sun's rays, that extending and expanding were to invest the whole human family, in which one would see many in one, as though palpitating in these rays, all centralized in the center of this first human sun. And all were to have the virtue of forming their own sons, without going out of the bond of the first son. In fact, since the life of each one would have its origin from this sun, each one would be able to be son of his own." How beautiful was the creation of man! Oh, how it surpassed the whole entire universe! The bond, the union of one in many, was the greatest prodigy of our omnipotence, as our will, one in itself, was to maintain the inseparability of all, the communicative and unifying life of all, symbol and image of our divinity, as we are inseparable. And even though we are three divine persons, we are always one, because one is the will, one is the sanctity, one is our power. This is why man is always looked upon by us as if there were one alone, even though he was to have his very long generation, but always centralized in the one. It was the uncreated love that was created by us in man, and therefore he was to give of us and be like us. And our will, the only one acting in us, was to act as the only one in man, in order to form the unity of all and the bond of inseparability of each one. Therefore, by withdrawing from our divine fiat, man became deformed and disordered, and no longer felt the strength of the unity and inseparability, either with his Creator or with all generations. He felt like a divided body, broken in his members, that no longer possesses all the strength of his body as whole. This is why my divine will wants to enter again as prime act into the creature, to reunite the broken members, and to give him the unity and the inseparability, as he came out of our creative hands. We find ourselves in the condition of an artisan who has made his beautiful statue such as to astonish heaven and earth. The artisan loves this statue so much that he has placed his very life in it. So at each act or movement it does, the artisan feels within himself the life, the act, the movement of his beautiful statue. The artisan loves it with love of delirium, nor can he remove his gaze from it. But in so much love, the statue receives an encounter. It bumps and it remains broken in its members and in its vital part that kept it bound and united to the artisan. What will his sorrow not be, and what will he not do in order to redo his beautiful statue? More so, since he still loves it, and to the raving love has added the grieving love. Such is the state the divinity is in with regard to man. He is our delirium of love and of sorrow, for we want to redo the beautiful statue of man. And since the bump took place in the vital part of our will that he possessed, once our will is reestablished in him, the beautiful statue will be redone for us, and our love will be satisfied. Therefore, I want nothing else from you but my divine will to have its life. Then he added with a more tender tone, "My daughter, in the created things the divinity did not create love, but the flowerings of his light, of his power, of his beauty, and so forth. So it can be said that in creating the heavens, the stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, the earth, it was our works that we issued, and the flowerings of our beautiful qualities. Only for man was this greatest prodigy of creating the life, and the life of our love itself. And this is why it is said that he was created in our image and likeness. And this is why we love him so much, because it is life and work that has come out of us, and life costs more than anything." December 25th, 1929, Volume 27. How the birth of Jesus was the rebirth of the divine will in his humanity, and everything he did were rebirths of it, formed in him in order to make it be reborn in creatures. Jesus was the true sacrificed one of his will. I was thinking of when my most sweet baby Jesus, fidgeting with love, came out of the womb of his celestial mamma. What joy for her to be able to squeeze him in her arms, kiss him, and engage in a contest in loving he who so much loved her. But while many thoughts were crowding my mind about the holy birth of the divine infant, I felt him move in my interior, and coming outside, he placed himself in my arms, and stretching out his tiny little hands to my neck, he told me, "My daughter, you too, kiss me and squeeze me to yourself, as I kiss you and squeeze you to myself, and let us love each other with such contest of love as to never stop." And abandoning himself in my arms as a tiny little baby, he remained silent. But who can say the squeezes of love, the affectionate kisses? I believe it is better to pass over them in silence. Then afterwards, resuming his speaking, he added, "My daughter, my birth in time was the rebirth of my divine will in my humanity, and as it was reborn in me, it brought the good news of its rebirth in the human generations. My Fiat is eternal, but it can be said that it was as though born in Adam in order to form the long generation of the rebirth in the creature. But since Adam rejected this divine will, by rejecting it, he prevented the many rebirths it was to have in each creature. And with constant and invincible love, it waited for my humanity in order to be born again in the midst of the human family. Therefore, everything I did in the whole course of my life, the baby tears, my moans and wailings, were nothing other than rebirths of my divine will that were formed in me so as to make it be reborn in creatures. In fact, it being reborn in me and possessing it as my own, I had the right and the power to give it and make it be reborn in the creature. So everything that my humanity would do, steps, works, words, pains, and even my breath, and my very death, formed as many rebirths. Therefore there was not one act I did, even my very sacramental life, each consecrated host, are continuous rebirths of my supreme volition that it prepares for the creature. So I am the true sacrificed one of a cause so holy that my will may reign. I myself am he who formed its kingdom within me, and making it be reborn in me as many times for as many creatures as it would be reborn in, I formed its most holy empire, and its reigning in the midst of my members. Now, my daughter, after I placed the kingdom of my divine will in safety within my humanity, I had to manifest it in order to make it known. Therefore I came to you, and I began to narrate to you the long story of my divine Fiat. Now you must know that I have made and I make so many manifestations. I have spoken so many truths, so many words, for as many rebirths as my will did in my humanity. Its rebirths in me and its knowledges that I manifest to you will be in perfect balance. Each rebirth of my divine volition done in me and in each consecrated host will find a manifestation and a truth of its own that confirms it and will give it rebirth in the creature. In fact, in God the Word forms the life of the good He wants to form in the creature. Our Word is bearer of life. Was it not our Word Fiat that, pronouncing itself, created the heavens, the sun, and everything that can be seen in the entire universe, and even the very life of man himself? Until we pronounced Fiat, everything was in us. As it was pronounced, it populated heavens and earth with so many works, beautiful and worthy of us, and it gave the start to the long generation of so many human lives. See, then, how everything I tell you on my divine will bring, with the power of my creative word, its many rebirths done in me into the midst of the human family. Here is the great reason for a story so long and a speaking of mine so continuous. It will be in balance with everything that was done by us in creation, and with everything I did in redemption. And if it seems that sometimes I remain silent, it is not because I have ceased my speaking, but because I take rest. In fact, it is my usual way to rest in my very word and works that come out of me. Just as I did in creation, it was not pronounced always. I would say Fiat, and I would pause, and then I would pronounce it again. So I do in you. I speak, I give you my lesson, and I take rest. First, to enjoy in you the effects of my words, and to dispose you to receive the new life of my lesson. Therefore be attentive, and let your flight in my divine will be continuous. December 25th, 1931, Volume 30, Desire of Jesus for the Company of the Creature. Extreme need of little baby Jesus to be loved with divine love by his celestial mother. I feel myself as though being inundated by the sea of light of the divine will. Oh, how I would really like to be the tiny little fish in this sea, in such a way as to see nothing but light, and touch, breathe, live of light. Oh, how happy I would be to hear said to me that I am the daughter of the Celestial Father. But while I was thinking of this and other things, my dear life, the sweet and sovereign Jesus, visiting my little soul, made himself seen with seas of interminable light coming out from within his adorable person. And from within this light came out souls that populated the earth and all heaven. And Jesus, calling me, told me, "My daughter, come into this light. I want you here." The virtue of my light, its motion as font of life, does nothing other than unleash souls, that is, life of creatures, from within its womb of light. Its power is so great that, as it moves, it emits souls. And I want my beloved together with me in the womb of my light, that is, of my will. As souls are formed and emitted outside, I do not want to be alone, but I want your company, that you may recognize the great portent of the creation of souls, our excessive love. And since I want you in my will, I want to deposit them in you, entrust them to you, not leaving them alone while they journey as pilgrims through the earth, but having someone together with me who would protect them and defend them for me. Oh, how sweet is the company of one who takes care of the lives that come out of me. This is so pleasing to me that I make one who lives in my will the depository of the creation of souls, the channel by which I let them come out to the light, and the channel to let them re-enter into the celestial fatherland. Everything do I want to give to one who wants to live in my fiat. Their company is necessary to my love, to my outpourings, and to my works, for they want to be recognized. To act and not be recognized, they are like works that cannot boast triumph, nor sing victory and glory. Therefore do not deny me your company. You would deny your Jesus an outpouring of love, and my works would lack the cortege and the appreciation of the creature, and would remain like isolated works, and my love, constrained, would turn into justice. After this I was thinking about the birth of little baby Jesus, especially in the act when he came out of the maternal womb. And the celestial infant told me, "Dearest daughter, you must know that as soon as I unleashed myself from the womb of my mamma, I felt the need of a divine love and affection. I left my celestial father in the Empyrean, loving each other with love fully divine. Everything was divine among the divine persons, affections, sanctity, power, and so forth. Now I did not want to change ways in coming upon earth. My divine will prepared for me the divine mother, in a way that I had divine father in heaven and divine mother on earth. And as soon as I came out of the maternal womb, feeling the extreme need of these divine affections, I ran into the arms of my mamma to receive as the first food, first breath, first act of life for my tiny humanity, her divine love. And she unleashed the seas of divine love that my fiat had formed in her, and she loved me with divine love, as my Father loved me in heaven. And oh, how happy I was! I found my paradise in the love of my mamma. Now, you know that true love never says enough. If it could say enough, it would lose the nature of the true divine love. And therefore, even from the arms of my mother, while I was taking the food, the breath, the love, the paradise that she gave me, my love extended, made itself immense, embraced the centuries. It searched, ran, called, raved, for it wanted the divine daughters. And my will, to calm my love, presented to me the divine daughters whom it would form for me in the course of the centuries. And I looked at them. I embraced them. I loved them. And I received the breath of their divine affections. And I saw that the divine queen would not remain alone, but would have the generation of my divine daughters and hers. My will knows how to change and give the transformation, and form the noble grafting from human to divine. Therefore, when I see you operate in it, I feel, being given to me and repeated for me, the paradise that my ma gave me when she received me, a little baby, into her arms. Therefore, those who do and live in my divine will make arise and form the sweet and beautiful hope that its kingdom will come upon earth, and I will delight in the paradise of the creature that my fiat has formed in them. And while my mind continued to think about what Jesus had told me, with a more intense and tender love, he added, "My good daughter, our love runs continuously toward the creature. Our loving motion that never ceases runs in the beating of the heart, in the thoughts of the mind, in the breathing of the lungs, in the blood that circulates. It runs, always runs, and vivifies with our note and motion of love, the heartbeat, the thought, the breath, and it wants the encounter with the love palpitating, with the breath loving, with the thought that receives and gives us love. And while our love runs with unreachable rapidity, the love of the creature does not meet with ours. It remains behind and does not follow the race of our love that runs without ever stopping. And as we see that we are not even followed, while we continue to go around in the heartbeat, in the breath, in the whole being of the creature, delirious we exclaim, our love is not known, nor received, nor loved by the creature, and if she receives it, it is without knowing it. Oh, how hard it is to love and not to be loved. Yet, if our love did not run, their lives would cease in one instant. It would happen as to the clock. If there is the winding, it makes its tick-tick heard, and it marks the hours and the minutes in an admirable way, and it serves to maintain the order of the day, the public order. If the winding ceases, the tick-tick can no longer be heard. It is stopped, as though lifeless, and there can be many disorders because the clock is not moving. The winding of the creature is my love, such that as this celestial winding runs, the heart palpitates, the blood circulates, the breath is formed. These can be called the hours, the minutes, the instants of the clock of the life of the creature. And in seeing that if I do not let the winding of my love run, they cannot live, and yet I am not loved back. My love continues its race, but with the attitude of dolorous and delirious love. Now, who will remove from us this sorrow and will soothe our loving delirium? One who will have our divine will as life. Our will as life will form the winding in the encounter with our love, and our winding and theirs will proceed at the same rate. Our continuous tick will be followed by their tick, and our love will no longer be alone in running, but will have its race together with the creature. Therefore, I want nothing other than my will in the creature. December 25th, 1932, Volume 31. The birth of the infant Jesus was universal. He was born in all and in each one. How to keep us safe. He came to cover us with the garment of his humanity. Example of the Son. My abandonment in the Fiat continues, and today, being Christmas, I spent all night without seeing my celestial baby, and I felt a crack in my heart without he who forms my life and my all. Ah, to live without him is living as if one had no life, tortured, without strength, without support. That forms the most terrible of deaths for my poor and little soul. And between anxieties and fears, I prayed the supreme volition that it would reveal to me he who loved me and who formed my hard martyrdom. So in the meantime, my mind remained as enraptured by an immense light that filled heaven and earth, and, oh wonder, I saw the little divine baby reborn in every created thing, in every heart. In everything, little infant Jesus multiplied, bilocated, reborn in an infinite way, in all and in each one, such that all have the good of feeling the celestial baby born in them. Oh, how beautiful it was to see him tiny, tiny in the sun, in the stars, in all the elements, in all creatures. that everything extolled and had the great honor, the immense good of his being reborn in each one, and of possessing as their own the sweet pledge of baby Jesus. Then between wonder and amazement, I saw that he, whom I sought with so many sighs and anxieties, was also born in me. And I clasped him strongly, strongly in my arms, and he let me do it. Rather, he enjoyed that I was doing it, and all tenderness he told me, "My daughter, love me, love me. I am born to love and to be loved, and in order to act as God, my birth was universal. I would not have done as God if I had not been reborn in a universal way, in a way that everyone can say with deeds, 'The celestial infant was born for me. He is mine, and this is so true that I already possess him.' My love would remain hindered if I could not be born in everyone, my power limited, my immensity restricted, if my birth was not universal. And it is no wonder, as my divinity filled the heavens and earth, thus incorporating itself in my little humanity, it multiplied it and bilocated it in such a way as to make me be born in all and in each one. They are our divine and infinite ways that we have, that everything must take the good that we do and be pregnant with our works. Even more, when I descended from heaven to earth, I wanted to take human flesh in order to completely glorify the Celestial Father, to supply for everything that man had not done. This is why he wanted my little humanity also reborn in all created things, because man had not given us the glory, the exchange of love for having created a heaven, a sun, and so many other things. And my humanity being reborn in them glorified my Celestial Father completely for the whole work of creation. Man, by rejecting my divine will, was made powerless in everything, and I came to be his savior, repairer, glorifier, defender, and I covered him within the garment of my humanity in order to keep him safe. And I answer to my Celestial Father for him in everything. So much was my love that my divinity was able to give an outpouring to my love, that it brought me to being born in every heart and in all things. This is so true that the first ones to recognize me and to extol me were created things, because feeling my birth in themselves, they exulted with joy and made feast for me. But do you know who are those who make feast for me in the birth in their hearts? Those who possess my divine will. These have immediately noticed that I am born in their hearts, and they make perennial feast for me. On the other hand, the others make me cry. They give me sorrow, and with sin they prepare for me the knife to either wound me or kill me. After this I remained all immersed in his love, and the moving scene of the birth of the celestial baby, so universal and in everyone. He made me understand who knows how many things, but I believe that it is better to pass over them in silence, because not knowing how to say them well, I would blunder. So in order to make a feast for the celestial infant, I abandoned myself completely in the divine will. And he, returning again, but so attractive, with a beauty so rare that one does not find another similar, and enclosing himself in my heart, all love, as a place of his birth, repeated in me his infantile wailings, loving moans, and repeated sobbings. Oh, how moving it was to see him now crying, now sobbing. He made the first entrance of being reborn in each one and in all, with the weapons of his tears, with the stratagems of his sobbing, with the prayers of his wailings. With this he made himself enrapturer, and by way of enrapturing, with the strength of a God that he possessed, he entered into hearts in order to form his rebirth anew. Oh, the heavens bow down, and together with me love and adore the celestial infant. But while my mind was lost in a mystery so great, the sweet little baby, between tears and sobbings, mixed with a celestial attitude of appeal, added, "Blessed daughter, my birth was not only universal, because as God I cannot do differently. I found myself in the condition of the sun, that whether they want it or they do not want it, all created things, all creation and all creatures must receive its light, its heat. From up high, descending with my empire of light, and with my supremacy that I possess over everything and every one, it seems that the sun says in its muteness, but stronger than if it could speak, whether you receive me with love, or I invest you with the rights that I possess to give you light, if you do not want to receive me, I will surround you on all sides in a way that you cannot escape from my light, and I will have the great glory that I have given my light to everyone. The sun is a symbol of my birth, because it too is reborn in all days for each and every one. And I am not only born in a universal way, but I make an invasion when I am reborn. I am not only reborn in hearts, but I invade the mind with my thoughts, the eyes with my tears, the voice with my whimperings, in such a way that I make the universal invasion of all creatures. I take her from all sides, such that she cannot escape from me. If they receive me with love, my life not only is born in them, but it grows in a surprising way. If then they do not receive me with love, I am born in them with my rights of God that I possess, but I do not grow in them. I remain tiny and alone, and I change to being reserved, waiting. Who knows, with my weeping and tears they may be induced to love me. And if this does not happen, my life changes into justice for them. And oh, how my little heart agonizes to see my birth, all love, changed into justice for the poor creature. So since I am already born in you, give me the good of making me grow, so you will change my tears and my weepings into joys. December 25th, 1937, Volume 35, The Descent of the Divine Word. How he left heaven while still remaining there. Prodigies of the Incarnation. The beginning of the feast of the divine will. How in his divine works he puts aside human ingratitude. The grafting. How the love of Jesus paid for all and rescued us. I was following the acts of the divine volition, and my poor mind paused in the act of the descent of the divine word upon earth. My God, how many wonders, how many surprises of love, of power, of divine wisdom. They are so great and so many that one doesn't know where to start to tell them. My beloved Jesus, as if inundated in his sea of love that forms its waves, surprising me, said, "My blessed daughter, in my descent upon earth, the wonders, the ardor of our love were so great and so many that neither angels nor creatures can understand all that our divinity operated in the mystery of my incarnation. You must know that our Supreme Being possesses its incessant motion by nature. If this motion could cease, even for an instant, which cannot be, all things would remain paralyzed and with no life, because all things, the life, the preservation, and all that exists in heaven and on earth, everything depends on that motion. Therefore, in descending from heaven to earth, I, Word and Son of the Father, departed from our primary motion. I mean, remaining, I left. The Father and the Holy Spirit descended with me. They were concurrent. Neither did I do any act if not together with them. And they still remained on the throne, full of majesty in the celestial regions. So as I left, my immensity, my love, and my power descended together with me, and my love, which is incredible and is not satisfied if it doesn't form from my life a life for each existing creature, not only did this, but it formed my life everywhere and in every place, multiplying it. Keeping my immensity in its power, my love filled it with many of my lives, so that everyone could have a life of mine for himself, and the divinity could have the glory and the honor of a divine life for as many things and creatures as we delivered to daylight. Our love repaid us for the work of creation, and by forming many of our lives, it not only repaid us, but it gave us even more than we had done. Our divinity remained enraptured, and felt a sweet enchantment in seeing the devices and stratagems of our love, in seeing so many of our lives being spread out, since our love used our own immensity as the circle in which to place them. Therefore, while my life was the center, my immensity and power were the circumference in which these innumerable lives were being deposited. These lives could find everything and everyone and offered themselves to love us and to be loved. I remained surprised in hearing this, and my sweet Jesus, not giving me time, immediately added, "My daughter, do not be surprised. When we operate, we do complete work so that nobody can ever say, 'He didn't do this for me. His life is not all my own.' Love cannot arise when things are not one's own and are not kept within one's power. And then, isn't this what the sun also does? Work created by us, in becoming light for the eyes, to the extent of filling them completely with light, and being at the same time light, full and entire, for the hand that works, for the step that walks. In this way, everyone, created things and creatures, can say, 'The sun is mine.' While the center of the sun is in the height of the atmosphere, its light departs and remains. With its circle of light, it invests the earth and becomes light for everyone, even for the little flower and the tiny blade of grass. The sun is not life. It has light, and light it gives, together with all the goods contained in its light. Our divinity is life, the author and life of all. Therefore, in descending from heaven to earth, I had to do complete acts, and more than sun, show off my life, multiplying it into many lives, so that heaven, earth, and everyone could possess my life. Otherwise it would not have been a work worthy of our wisdom and of our infinite love." Jesus remained silent, and I continued to think about the birth of little baby Jesus. And he added, "Little daughter of my will, The feast of my birth was the feast, the beginning of the feast of my divine will. As the angels were singing, "Glory to God in the highest heavens, and peace on earth to the men of good will," all angels and the creation assumed a festive mode, and while celebrating my birth, they celebrated the feast of my divine will. In fact, with my birth, our divinity received true glory unto the highest heavens, and men will have the true peace when they will recognize my will, giving it dominion and allowing it to reign. Only then will they feel my will as good, will they feel the divine strength. Only then will heaven and earth sing together, "Glory to God in the highest heavens, and peace on earth to the men who will possess the divine will." All will abound in these men, and they will possess the true peace. So I continued to think of the birth of that little King Jesus, and I said to him, "Nice little baby, tell me, what did you do when you saw the great human ingratitude to your great love?" And Jesus, "My daughter, if I had taken into account the human ingratitude to my great love, I would have taken the way to go back to heaven. But I would have saddened and embittered my love and turned the feast into mourning. So would you like to know what I do in my greatest works in order to make them more beautiful? With pomp and with the greatest show of my love, I put everything aside, human ingratitude, sins, miseries, weaknesses, and I give course to my greatest works, as if those things did not exist. If I had wanted to care about the evils of man, I couldn't have done great works, or put all my love on the field. I would have remained hampered, suffocated in my own love. Instead, in order to be free in my works, and to make them as beautiful as I can, I place everything aside, and, if necessary, I cover everything with my love, so that I see nothing but my love and my will. I move forward with my greatest works, and I perform them as if nobody had offended me. For our glory, nothing can be lacking to our decorum, to the beauty and the greatness of our works. This is why I would want that you too did not occupy yourselves with your weaknesses, your evils, and your troubles. In fact, the more the creature thinks about those, the weaker she feels, and the more the poor one feels drowned by evils, while her miseries press round her more strongly. By thinking about it, weakness feeds more weakness, and the poor creature falls even more. Evils become stronger, miseries reduce her to starvation. But if she doesn't think about them, they disappear by themselves. Good is completely the opposite. One good feeds another good. One act of love calls for more love. One abandonment in my will makes her feel the new divine life within herself. Therefore, thinking of good forms the food and the strength to do more good. This is why I want your thinking to be occupied by nothing other than loving me and living in my will. My love will burn all your miseries and all your evils, and my divine volition will become your life, using your miseries as the base on which to raise its throne. Then I continued to think about the little newborn Jesus. And oh, how it broke my heart seeing him crying, sobbing, wailing, and shivering with cold. I wanted to place one "I love you" of mine for each pain and each tear of the divine little one, to warm him and to calm his crying. And Jesus added, "My daughter, I can feel one who lives in my will, in my tears and in my wailing. I feel her, flowing in my crying sobs, and in the shivering of my tiny limbs. By virtue of my will that she possesses, she turns the tears into smiles, and the sobs into heavenly joys. With her love dirges, she warms me, and changes the pains into kisses and hugs. Even more, know that one who lives in my will receives continuous grafts of all that my humanity does. If I think, I graft her thoughts. If I speak and pray, I graft her word. If I work, I graft her hands. There is nothing of what I do that does not form a graft for the creature, to make of her the repetition of my life. Even more so since my divine will is in her, and I can find my power, my sanctity, and my very life to do whatever I want with her. How many prodigies can I not do when I find my will in the creature? I came on earth to cover everything with my love, to drown the very evils, and to burn everything with my love. By justice, I wanted to repay my father, because it was right for him to be restored in his honor, in the glory, in the love, and in the gratitude that everyone owed him. So my love couldn't find peace. It fills the gaps of his glory and of his honor, to the extent that, through love, it repaid the divinity who had created a heaven, a sun, a wind, a sea, a flowery earth, and all the rest, while man had uttered not even one thank you for the so many goods he had received. He had been the true thief, the ungrateful, the usurper of our goods. My love ran and ran in order to fill the abysses of distance between the Creator and the creature. It paid my celestial Father through love, and through love it brought back the human generations, to give back to them the life of my divine will, having already formed many lives from it as their ransom. And when my love pays, the value is such that it can afford to pay for everyone and to buy back whatever it wants. Therefore, you have already been purchased by my love. So, let me enjoy you and possess you. December 25th, 1938, Volume 36. The Descent of the Word. How easy it is to make Jesus be born as long as we live in his will. The paradise that the Queen of Heaven made Jesus find on earth. My poor mind continues its path in the divine will. Oh, how happy it feels in seeing that its little newborn wanders in search of its acts, to know them, kiss them, adore them, make them her own, and say, "How much you loved me." I stopped at the descent of the Word upon earth, and I felt sorry in seeing him all alone. My sweet Jesus, with unspeakable tenderness, surprised me, told me, "My dearest daughter, you are wrong. Loneliness is part of human ingratitude, but from the divine side, all our works accompanied me, never leaving me alone. Further, you must know that the Father and the Holy Spirit descended together with me, while I still remained in heaven with them. They came down on earth within me, since we are inseparable. We cannot be separated, not even if we wish to be so. At the most, we bilocate ourselves, so as to maintain our throne in heaven while forming our throne on earth. Being separated? Never. At the most, the Word took the operative part, but always with the concourse of the Father and the Holy Spirit. Furthermore, in the act of my descent from heaven, everyone moved to be my court and render me the honors I deserve. The sky courted me with all its stars, rendering me the honor of my immutability and of my everlasting love. The sun courted me, paying me the honor of my eternal light. Oh, how well it praised the variety of its effects. I can say that, as I found myself with its light and heat, in its mute language it told me, "You are the light, and I honor you. I adore you. I love you with the same light with which you created me." All surrounded me, the wind, the sea, the little bird, everyone and everything, to give me the love and the glory with which I had created them. And they praised my empire, my immensity, my infinite joys. All created things made me a feast, and if I cried, they cried together with me, because my will residing in them kept them aware of all that I was doing. Oh, how honored they felt in doing all that their Creator was doing. Then I received the courting of the angels, who never left me alone. And since all times belonged to me, I was also courted by all the many peoples who were going to live in my will. My will was carrying them in its arms, and I felt them beating in my heart, in my blood, and in my steps. In feeling invested by these people, loved by my own will, I felt repaid for my descent from heaven to earth. This was my primary scope, to reorder the kingdom of my will in the midst of my children. I would never have created the world if I was not to have children who looked like me and lived in my own will. My will would find itself in the same condition as a poor sterile mother who is not able to generate and therefore form her own family. But my will does have the power to generate and to form its long generations, its own family. Then I continued to think about the descent of the divine word, saying to myself, how could Jesus be born within our souls? And my dear baby said, "My daughter, to make me be born is the easiest thing, more so since we do not know how to do difficult things. Our power facilitates everything. Provided that the creature lives in our will, all is done. As soon as the soul wants to live in it, she has already formed the home for your Jesus. At the moment she wants to start doing her acts, she conceives me. As she does her act, she makes me be born. As she loves in my will, so she clothes me with light, warming me from the great coldness of the creatures. Every time she gives me her will to take my own, I am amused. I have my toy to play with, and I sing my victory over the human will, feeling like the little triumphant king. See then, my daughter, how easy this is for your little Jesus, because when we find our will in the creature, we can do anything. It provides us with all that is needed and all that we want to form our life and our most beautiful works. But without our will, we remain hampered. Now, love is missing. Now, sanctity. Now, power. Now, purity. And all that it takes to make our life rise again and to form it within the creatures. Therefore, all depends on the creatures, since from our side, we place ourselves at their disposal. Further, during my birth, my divine Mama made me a beautiful surprise with her acts, with her love, with the life of my will that she possessed. She formed my paradise on earth. She did nothing other than braid the whole creation with her love, laying seeds of beauty, making me enjoy our divine beauties within which her beauty was shining. How beautiful my mother was! How beautiful to find her in the whole of creation! She made me enjoy her beauty and the beauty of her acts. She spread her sea of love to make me find her love, my paradise of love in all created things. I delighted and exulted in my mamma's seas of love. She made for me, in my will, the most beautiful tunes and the most delightful concerts, so that her little Jesus would not miss the music of the heavenly fatherland. My mother took care of everything, so that nothing would be lacking of the enjoyment of the paradise I had left. She kept forming in each one of her acts new joys to make me happy. By just leaning on her heart, I could feel such harmonies and contentments as to be enraptured. By living in my will, my dear mother carried paradise in her lap and let her son enjoy it. All her acts did nothing less than make me happy and redouble my paradise on earth. Now, my daughter, let me tell you another surprise. One who lives in my will is inseparable from me. She is born again each time, together with me. Therefore, I am never alone. I make her be born again with me to divine life, to new love, to new sanctity, and to new beauty. She is reborn in the knowledge of her Creator, reborn in each one of her acts. More than this, in every act she does, she calls me to be born again, forming a new paradise for her Jesus, and I make her be born again with me to make her happy. Therefore, be attentive to live in my will if you want to make me happy, if you want me to find in your acts my paradise on earth, and I will take care to make you enjoy the sea of my joy and happiness. We will make each other happy. End of December 25th. Fiat.